and welcome to Coven Quorum. I'm Anna Marie Tendler. This is an advice column. You submit questions, queries, conundrums, and I give you advice. First things first, I am an expert in nothing. I have no credentials. I am not qualified. I'm just a girl with a useless master's degree, DBT skills, and a lot of therapy experience. People have told me I give good advice. I simply love to weigh in on problems that are not my own. So here we are, Coven Quorum. Let's get started. Hi, Coven. Okay, so here's the deal. I had a totally different intro for today's episode. I recorded it a little while ago, and then some things came up this week that I just absolutely felt like I needed to talk about. So I have moved that intro to next week's episode, and you're getting the brand new intro. Okay, the first exciting thing is I got a new microphone. So now the audio will be better. And I would like to say a huge thank you to the people who have become paid subscribers on my Substack, because it is those people who enabled me to buy this new microphone for the podcast. I had gotten my old microphone for free when I was a guest on a podcast. And so I've been using that for this one. And I decided that if I got a certain number of paid subscribers, that I would buy myself a new microphone. So thank you so much. I produce this podcast totally on my own, which means that I write it on my own, I record it on my own, I edit it on my own, and that is a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of work. And I really take a long time to think about your questions and how I'm going to answer them. And so I just want to say, again, a really big thank you to the people who are paid subscribers on my Substack, because you guys make it possible for me to produce this podcast and to make it free for everybody. And if you would like to become a paid subscriber, I would, first of all, be so appreciative. You can do so at annamarietendler.substack.com. It is $6 a month or $60 a year. A little bit of bad news is that I had already recorded all of the rest of this podcast on my not so good microphone. So only the intro is going to sound good, and then you have to suffer through the rest. But then next week, we are off to the races. Okay, second piece of business is that I want you all to go back to episode 2, just the intro. And I talk about the Tour de France. And I talk about how Netflix called the Tour de France documentary um, Unchained, even though in the actual French documentary, it's called Le Cours du Peloton, which is in the heart of the peloton. Why didn't they just leave it like that? I don't know, but it's called Unchained. And then I was like, why are they calling it Unchained? Who's walking around these tours with bike chains? Like, no one needs to lock up their bikes. I don't think people are walking around like stealing bikes. Well, egg on my face, because at the end of August, the Wall Street Journal reported that $15,000 worth of bicycles were stolen from the Visma Lisa Bike cycling team. That is the team that Jonas Vingegaard, as I spoke about in episode 2, he rides for them. And uh, they were all riding on the Vuelta a España. I did a really good job with that. But it's one of the grand tours. Someone lifted 18 bicycles. Some of them were found in a nearby bush. I suppose that as they were planning their getaway, they thought better of what they were doing and realized they maybe really didn't need 18 bicycles. I don't know. It's not funny to steal. It's not funny to lose a bike, but I did think that was funny because I was like, what idiot is locking up their bikes? And then all these bikes got stolen, and I guess they should have been locking up their bikes. Okay, third thing is that this past week, an article was published in a major news outlet about how astrology is fake. And a lot of astrologers have pointed out how news outlets report on this like every couple of years they decide to like debunk astrology. And so, whatever, this is not new. And apparently the study that they did was kind of questionable. They got a bunch of astrologers and they gave them traits and then expected them to uh guess a person's birth chart based on all of these traits, which is that's just not how astrology works. That's not what astrology is. So, first of all, that's funny. The thing that that really got me about it is after that was published, Adam Grant, who we all know, decided to post on Instagram, and it was, like a photo of a tweet that said, "Another nail in the astrology coffin. 152 astrologers did no better than random chance at guessing people's charts from detailed info about them. Astrologers helped design the test, and experts, that's in quote, failed at the same rate as novices. Horoscopes may be fun, but they ain't real." Okay. So, what I'm about to say is well, first of all, I just want to say the putting experts in quotes is so condescending. I don't really think he needed to do that, but um okay, this is a little hypocritical because I don't love comment sections of things. I have been extremely lucky that on Instagram only, people who comment on my stuff have been so nice and supportive. So anyone who is commenting on my Instagram, this does not apply to you. I love you. I think you're great. But I tend to think the comment sections of Instagram posts and, YouTube and whatever you can comment on, they're pretty toxic and pretty mean. But I could not resist diving into the comment section of this post by Adam Grant because if there is a group of people that you do not want to come for, it is the astrology girlies. It is the witches of the world. There are nearly, no, there are more than 2,000 comments, and I just gotta say, some of them are so funny, and the ones I have seen are not mean, which makes them even funnier. Like, if you can dunk on this post and not be mean and say something that's, like, genuinely really funny and really smart, that's gonna make me laugh. Another thing that is so funny about this is that this took place, the article and then Adam Grant's posting of this took place right in the wake of a lunar eclipse. And if you know anything about astrology, you know that eclipses are chaos, like it is chaos energy. And so let me just say that the fact that this was published in conjunction with a lunar eclipse, it was not lost on the astrologers. I would absolutely love to read you some of my favorite comments on this post because you better believe I screenshotted them. 1. Considering we are made of stardust, quantum entanglement would suggest astrology is real. 2. This is classic lunar eclipse content, winky face. 3. Sure, if you measure a hot dog by its success as a sandwich, you will get such results. 4. Yeah, but was Mercury in retrograde when this test was performed? 5. Imagine taking this stance against astrology when gestures wildly at the state of the world. Let people have their joy. 6. Maybe get a Virgo to design a proper study next time. 7. Do Christianity next. 8. This screams Leo energy, TBH. So, yeah, This study and everything that happened around it brought a lot of joy to my life because if you believe in astrology, some news article saying that it's wrong is not going to make you not believe in astrology. Just let us have astrology. Let us live. We have so many problems, including a genocide in Gaza and hateful political social rhetoric and a gun control problem and, rights being stripped away of anyone who isn't a cis hetero white man. So I think astrology is maybe the least of our worries. Ah, it's time for questions. Our first question comes from Chloe from Australia. Chloe writes, I'm struggling with anticipatory grief when it comes to my two fur babies. I know there's going to be a time when they're not here, and that destroys me. So much so that it's clouding the time I have left with them. Wow, this is a great question. And I bet it's something that a lot of people struggle with. I know I certainly do. And I love the last observation here that it's clouding your time in the present, because that is exactly what anxiety does. It absolutely ruins the present moment. And really, all we have is this present because nothing in the future is guaranteed to us. So, even more of a reason not to fuck it up right now. I just said nothing in the future is guaranteed, but that's not actually true. Do you know what is guaranteed? Death. Everything, everyone dies. I was wrecked when my dog Petunia died in 2023. I had also been consumed with anticipatory grief regarding her death for basically the entire time that she was my dog. I nursed her while watching her decline from various illnesses. I had to make the call when it was time to put her to sleep, and I held her as she stopped breathing. It was the saddest thing I have ever experienced, but I survived it. And I really think that anticipatory grief has more to do with our own anxiety about what will happen to us in the wake of the pet's death rather than the death itself. I have 3 cats now, and when I feel the grief creep in around my cats, I remind myself that I survived Petunia's death and I will survive it again when the time comes with my cats. And I promise you, you will as well. In many ways, grief is a beautiful emotion. It doesn't feel good to experience it, but the why behind the experience is often a measure of our love and a measure of our humanity. And I think that's beautiful and very helpful to keep in mind. Deep grief over our pets means that we had the gift of experiencing either equal or greater depth of love for them. It's okay to feel sad that one day they won't be with us. But as it was astutely pointed out, that grief casting a cloud over the time you are currently spending with your pets is not what we want. For me, the most important thing was radical acceptance that death will happen. It's inevitable. Absolutely nothing will stop it. Ruminating on how awful it will be, I personally feel has a lot to do with a magical belief that if we think about it hard enough, we can somehow stop it. We can't. I find it helpful to remember that my cats live in the present. They do not have an anticipatory sense of their death. They just want to be present with me in whatever moment we are in. Like right now, I'm recording this podcast and you can hear Chimney chasing a toy around. He just wants to have fun. He just wants to be in the same room as me. When I think of it that way, it feels almost unfair to them for me to be mired in grief over their eventual passing, a thing that they can't conceptualize. I want to greet them on their level, and I want to give them the best, happiest life possible. The contract that we enter into when we get a pet is this: we will give them shelter, food, affection, love, and then we will hopefully give them as peaceful a death as possible. I held Petunia as she passed. And yes, it was so, so, so sad. But she lived surrounded by love, and she died that way too. And what a gift it was for me to be able to share that with her and provide that for her in addition to all of the things that she gave me. And what a gift for me then to go on and love my three cats. I honestly didn't know I had such a great capacity for love, but I do. I felt that grief for around 6 months, and still some days it creeps up on me and it takes my breath away. But you will survive it. And if you're feeling open to it, you will get to enter into that contract with another pet, which will be a whole new experience and a whole new love. This is the cycle of life and death. It's normal, it's natural, and it's an agreement we cannot get out of. Accepting this opens up room for you to be present with your pet right now. And reminding yourself how lucky you are that you get to have this experience with your pet right now helps with this acceptance. Last, we have Mickey from the bowling alley. How are you supposed to know if/when you should turn your creative expression into your career? And if you do, how do you not let capitalistic pressures tarnish the thing that is the lone playroom of adulthood? First, I simply must point out that this is one of 3 questions that has been submitted by a him. How exciting. I wish more men would submit questions to Coven Quorum. I would be nice. I promise. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I want to warn against turning your creative expression and passions into your career. I'm not saying it can't be done or that it shouldn't be done, but I personally feel that parlaying something creative that you do for fun into a business tends to kill the thing about it that makes it creative and fun. We are living during a time when everyone wants to monetize everything. Instagram used to be vacation and brunch photos we shared with our friends. It was so fun. Now it's not fun. For many, it's work. I actually think right now, in this current moment, it is almost impossible for capitalistic pressures to not tarnish creative expression. I don't think it was always like that, and I hope in the future it again won't be like that. But I don't think I'm going to see that in my lifetime. When you turn something you love into a business, it goes from being an escape and an outlet to a thing you have to make work for you. You stop being able to step away from it. You start having to think about how to optimize productivity. The time you spend doing this thing will become quantitative, sometimes instead of qualitative. I used to make Victorian lampshades. Weird, yes, but true. When I started doing it, I loved it. There was no pressure. I was so jazzed to create. Then I turned it into a little business, and I had to become aware of how much time I was spending on each shade relative to how much money I was making. They were very labor intensive, from designing to shopping for fabric, sewing, finishing. I was only ever making about $20 an hour for each shade. So I had to make shades quickly and make as many as I could. And now I wasn't making shades for enjoyment anymore. I was making them for profit, very, very small profit, and time equaled money. It sucked all the joy out of it. Eventually, I stopped making them. And to this day, I sort of wish I had never tried to make money off of it and had just kept it as something I made for my friends at cost. I feel like the early 2000s, or I don't know, maybe it was earlier, but that was just when I was old enough to pay attention. But around them, everyone became obsessed with quote unquote doing what you love, making their passion their career. And everyone really seemed to buy into that. And I'm sure it worked for a lot of people. But I also think you can have a job and do what you love outside your job. You can have a job that at the end of the day or on the weekend, you can step away from it and do something that really makes you happy. Probably one of the reasons that thing makes you happy is because you aren't beholden to it. You aren't tied to it for money. You can do it on your terms. You don't have to worry about other people not liking it or other people's opinions of it at all. You can just do your thing. Another example, I recently got very into woodworking. Like now I have all these tools. I never thought I'd own an orbital sander, but I do. I share my work with my close friends, and people are always like, wow, you could sell these. And I am like, no, je refuse. Woodworking is something I really, really, really enjoy. And I don't want money to come between me and that enjoyment. So I make things for my friends, and I either give them as gifts or I ask them to cover the cost of materials so I'm not losing money on the things I'm making. And then I take my goddamn time. They'll get that cutting board when I feel like giving them that cutting board. I do all these other things for money. I write, I sell artwork. Hopefully, maybe I sell ads against a podcast. But woodworking is something I can step away from all that and do. And it's really fun. So, to anyone out there, especially Mickey, thinking about turning their creative outlet or their passion into a career, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying really weigh the pros and cons. Your life could become about the business of that thing instead of the creative flow of doing that thing. Our last question is from B from Inside a Tree Stump. B asks, as a fellow human being who is also mentally ill, what are some grounding/centering tips you've been utilizing during these hellscape times? B, thank you so much for asking this question. I think it's a great one. And obviously, we are living in a time where we are being inundated by very bad, very stressful news. And I do believe that it's very important not to turn away from the news and to have an understanding about what's going on and bear witness to the atrocities that are playing out. I also think it's incredibly important that we do things to allow us to be able to function. So I love a grounding technique. I use them often, and I'm just going to list them off for you. First, I meditate. I do so every day for around 12 to 20 minutes a day. I use the Insight Timer app to keep track of it, and that app is totally free. I do mindfulness meditation. So I usually focus on my breath or a mantra, or I do what's called the loving kindness meditation. Next, I set a daily limit for Instagram. I am much happier when I am not doom scrolling. I stretch and I walk. For me, moving my body is incredibly important. I go out for walks often without listening to a podcast or listening to music. I just try and take in what is going on around me, the sounds and the sights, and really be present in that walk. I also have a foam roller that I roll around on, and it mushes up my muscles and it feels really good. These types of activities bring me back into my body, and I really try and do them without distracting myself, but focusing instead on just doing one thing at a time. This doing one thing at a time thing is a big part of Zen Buddhist practice. The very famous Buddhist monk and teacher Thich Nhat Hanh talks a lot about this in his teachings on mindfulness. And now I'm actually really trying to practice this non distraction during most small moments of the day. Like if I'm eating breakfast, I just eat breakfast. If I'm eating dinner, I just eat dinner. I don't like look up the news or scroll on my phone or internet shop or, anything like that. I save that for other allotted times during the day. It's hard, but I'm trying. I just want to be more present in the moment. Every day, I think of something that I'm grateful for. It can be as simple as the sun is shining. I know that that seems kind of cheesy and dumb, but I actually really do think it has a positive cumulative effect. I specifically carve out time during the week to do something I want to do, which isn't work related, like woodworking, as previously discussed, or reading, or seeing friends. Okay, so those are some of my grounding techniques. I have found that they really help my anxiety, and I hope they can be helpful for you too. Now it's time for No. Lily asks, AMT, I have a friend who is obsessed with Enneagrams, but is very anti astrology. He likes to debate with me on why I believe it to be true. Debate I use in the nicest way, as it is typically very condescending on his end. Thoughts? Nope, not worth the debate. Follow up question: is your friend Adam Grant? Vivi asks, should I go back to talking with a guy that I liked, stopped liking because he liked someone else, but now may have interest? No. Thank you so much for joining Coven Quorum. Coven Quorum is written, produced, and edited by me, AMT. The intro and outro song is Friend or Foe by Esther Rose. If you would like to submit a question, you will find the link to do so at the About page on my Substack, annamarietendler.substack.com, or in the bio of my Instagram, @AnnaMTendler. Until next time, take care.